I stood by her as she built her company from a basement startup all the way to the opening bell of the stock exchange. 10 years. She climbed on my shoulders. Step by step. Until she stood at the pinnacle of the capital world. Everyone assumed she would marry me. But on the very day our company went public, she walked in arm with the one who got away and announced their engagement to the world. You mean so much to me. But he's the one I've always wanted. In that moment, I finally understood. I was never her lover. I was just a tool she used to turn her life around. Fine. If she saw me as a stepping stone, then I'd make sure she learned one thing. In the world of capital, the winner isn't the one who loves first. It's the one who plays the hardest. The celebration banquet on the top floor of the Riverside Grand Hotel had an atmosphere that could only be described as tense. Aren't you going to explain yourself? I walked up to Emma Sutton and Benjamin Hayes. My eyes fixed on both of them. The flush faded from Emma's cheeks, replaced by that cool, composed expression I knew so well. She gave Benjamin's hand a gentle pat, signaling him to wait, then took 2 steps toward me. Liam, she said, keeping her voice low. Let's talk about this later. This isn't the place. Oh. And what place would be right? I asked. The leaky shared apartment where we split a single bowl of instant noodles 10 years ago. Or 5 years ago. When the company was going under and you held me crying. Liam. It's just us now. With each word, Emma's face grew paler. Benjamin frowned and stepped half a step forward, positioning himself slightly in front of her in a protective gesture. Mr. Carter. Emma. Shut up. I didn't even glance at him. My gaze was locked on Emma. I'm asking her. Emma took a deep breath and met my eyes. All the softness was gone from them, leaving only resolve. Liam. I've said it before. You'll always be the most important person I trust most. Her voice was clear and calm. Just like it was in board meetings. But some positions aren't earned just by sticking around or going through hard times together. Benjamin. He can give me a more stable future. A more respectable life. Our union will also benefit the group's next phase of expansion. I almost laughed of sheer anger. Every word she said stabbed straight into the softest part of my heart. I thought of all those late nights when she'd fall asleep on my shoulder. And I'd stare at her exhausted profile, swearing I'd give her everything. I thought of how clients would mock her for her background. And she'd come home crying in secret. And I'd hold her hand and say, someday, everyone will look up to us. Turns out the best I'd worked so hard to build wasn't respectable enough for her. Turns out the future I'd offered couldn't compete with a suitable marriage of convenience. Benjamin slipped an arm around Emma's shoulder then, and said with the tone of a victor, Mr. Carter, we both appreciate everything you and Emma built together. We'll still need your expertise with the group going forward. As for everything else, I hope you can understand. And wish us well. Wish us well. I stared at his hand on her shoulder. At the way she leaned slightly into him. And suddenly I let out a low, bitter laugh. It sounded strange in the hall, which had gone abruptly quiet. Good. Real good. I nodded and stepped back, letting my gaze drift slowly from Emma's face to Benjamin's. Then to all the curious, awkward faces around us. Emma. I stood by you for 10 years. From nothing to the opening bell. What was any of it worth? Her lips pressed into a thin line. After a long silence, she gave me the answer that turned my heart to ice. You're my most trusted partner. The indispensable other half of the Westview Group. But Benjamin. She paused. Her voice steady. He's the one who belongs at my side. For the rest of my life. So 10 years of passion. Sweat. And standing by each other through thick and thinner final filing label for all of it was partner. I looked at her. And suddenly everything felt absurd. So absurd I couldn't even summon the energy to be angry. There was nothing left but a vast, endless emptiness. Cold as the grave. I nodded. Didn't say another word. Turned and walked out of the banquet hall. Behind me, I heard Benjamin murmuring reassurances. And Emma sighing. I stepped into the elevator and shut all that suffocating glittering glamour outside. As the car descended, that weightless feeling hit my stomach. I leaned back against the cold metal wall, head tilted up, watching the floor numbers tick by. 10 years flashed before my eyes in fast forward. Her profile by the dim light of a cheap apartment. Eating instant noodles. The two of us crying and laughing on an empty street at midnight after landing our first big client. Holding each other and shaking during the financial crisis. When we'd mortgaged everything we had. And finally. Tonight. Her on the arm of another man. That strange. Girlish shyness and certainty on her face as she announced the engagement. My stomach lurched. I doubled over. Dry heaving. But nothing came up, just that burning acid at the back of my throat. The elevator reached the lobby. Doors slid open. I straightened up. Adjusted my askew tie. And strode out into the cold wind. Charles, my driver, pulled the car up and started when he saw my face. Mr. Carter. Are you? Riverside Residences. I said. Climbing in. My voice was raw. Not the office. Ms. Sutton called earlier. I said home. I closed my eyes and cut him off. The car merged into traffic. The glittering city streamed past the window. This city we'd spent 10 years conquering felt so strange. So cold. I pulled out my phone. The screen showed our chat from the night before. Her last message, after tomorrow. Everything will be a fresh start. You've got this. My Mr. Carter. A fresh start. Yeah. Real fresh. I locked the screen and said to Charles up front. Pull over. He did. I got out and walked to the riverside railing. The water was dark. Reflecting the bright lights across the bank. Shattering into 1,000 pieces just like my heart right now. 10 years. I'd gone from a kid hauling bricks on construction sites and sleeping under bridges to a billionaire CEO of a publicly traded company. I'd given the woman I loved everything I could, reputation, status, wealth, and every last piece of my heart and future. And at the brightest moment of my life, she'd pushed me off a cliff with her own 2 hands. Then stood at the edge with her more suitable first love. Smiling and waving. The river wind cut like a knife. I pulled out my cigarette case. Lit one up. And watched the red ember glow and fade in the dark. Halfway through. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I rarely called. It rang 3 times before a steady male voice answered. Mr. Carter. Marcus. I exhaled smoke. Watching it scatter in the wind. That insurance policy I had you set up privately 3 years ago. Is it still in place? A 2-second pause on the other end. It's been maintained exactly as you instructed. Deep sleep state. Single channel communication. Absolute confidentiality. Activated. I stared at the lights at the top of the Westview Group building across the river. And spoke 3 words slowly. Now. Now. I crushed the cigarette under my thumb until my knuckles whitened. Also. Look into 2 people for me. Emma Sutton and Benjamin Hayes. I want every communication record. Every financial transaction. Every person and project they've been in contact with over the past 3 months now. The past 6 months. The more detail, the better. Understood. Activation orders go out tonight. Materials will be on your desk by tomorrow night at the latest. Marcus's voice didn't waver. Like he'd just received a routine business directive. Only he and I knew this insurance policy was something I'd secretly built 4 years ago. In my own name. Without Emma knowing. Back then. It was just some vague, deep-seated distrust of human nature. Or maybe a fear of how easily people change when there's that much money on the line. I'd hired Marcus, one of the best in corporate intelligence and risk management, and used completely independent funding and channels to quietly plant people loyal only to me, in the most critical positions across the group. They didn't touch day-to-day operations. They only reported anomalies to me on a regular schedule. A deep covert corporate immune system. I never thought I'd actually need it. I even told myself I was just being paranoid. How could Emma ever betray me? We'd clawed our way out of the gutter together. But reality had just slapped me across the face harder than anything. One more thing. I added. My voice as cold as the river wind. Starting tomorrow. All working capital payments that require my final approval at Westview Group, put them all on hold. Every document that needs my signature gets shelved. Tell everyone I'm unwell and need rest. Marcus hesitated. Mr. Carter. That'll cause internal shock across the group. Especially right after the IPO. It's a sensitive time. Do it anyway. I cut him off. Let there be shock. Also. Compile the wager agreement we hold on Starlight Technologies. Plus the evidence of Emma's irregular offshore investment in the Blue Ocean project through her personal shell company. Send them anonymously to the SEC and the Business Fraud Division. Time it for 9 o'clock next Monday morning. Right when they get into the office. Starlight Technologies was a high-profile project Emma had pushed hard to invest in. The wager terms were recklessly aggressive if they came to light. It'd be enough to tank Westview's stock. And the Blue Ocean project. That was a fat piece of meat she'd run through her personal channels. Behind the board's back. The kickbacks and irregularities buried in there were enough to bury her. All of it was backup I'd kept when I was covering for her back in the day. I'd thought I'd never need any of it. On the other end of the line. Marcus's breath seemed to catch for a moment. Then went steady again. Yes. I'll handle it immediately. I hung up and stood by the river for a long time after. Until my hands and feet went numb. Back at Riverside Residences. I took a cold shower. The icy water ran over my body. But it couldn't wash away that searing mix of rage and cold agony in my chest. I sat by the floor-to-ceiling window in the empty living room. Watching the city lights go out one by one and the sky bleed into that cold, pale gray of dawn. A tower built over 10 years. Turns out it only takes a second to collapse. When morning came, I put on a plain black suit and knotted a dark red tie Emma had never seen before. Where to? Mr. Carter? Charles asked. Steady as ever. Office. I fastened my cufflinks. My tone calm. Morning meeting. The top-floor conference room at Westview Group was heavy with tension. The huge oval table was packed with executives and major shareholders. Emma sat at the head. Benjamin was there too. In a previously empty seat to her left. When I walked in, every head turned. Surprise. Curiosity. Suspicion. Emma looked up at me. Like she was about to say something. I walked straight to the far end of the table and sat down. Facing her across the full length of it. Let's begin. I opened the folder in front of me. My voice was flat. No trace of emotion. The morning meeting proceeded on schedule. Each department reported on post-IPO operations. But anyone could see the key people in the room had their minds elsewhere. Finally. When the CFO got to working capital. He looked pained. Ms. Sutton. Mr. Carter, about the second payment for the overseas acquisition. Put it on hold. I didn't look up. Cut him off. The room went dead silent. Emma looked at me. Frowning slightly. Liam. We've already agreed on the timeline with the other side. Delaying payment will hurt our credibility. It could kill the whole deal. Then let it die. I closed the folder and lifted my eyes to hers. Right now the group needs to conserve capital to handle post-IPO stock volatility. All known, essential large expenditures are suspended. That's my decision. But the board approved this acquisition. Emma's voice rose. Sharp with frustration. I'm the chairman. I have veto power. My tone was even. Or does Ms. Sutton think this partner of hers no longer has a say in group decisions? Emma went pale. She clearly hadn't expected me to be this direct in public. Benjamin gave her hand a gentle squeeze under the table and stepped in to smooth things over. His voice as mild as ever. Mr. Carter has a point. Stability comes first right after an IPO. Emma. Why don't we reassess the risks? I looked at his hand on top of hers. And suddenly I smiled. And in what capacity is Mr. Hayes attending a Westview senior management meeting? Shareholder. Director. Or Ms. Sutton's fiancé. Benjamin's smile froze on his face. Emma shot to her feet. Liam Carter. Do you have to do this? Benjamin is just here to observe. Right. I cut in. Leaning back in my chair and sweeping my gaze across the room. Everyone. Allow me to introduce you. This is Mr. Benjamin Hayes. Ms. Sutton's newly engaged fiancé. He may be getting more involved in group affairs going forward. Consider this your heads up. A ripple of suppressed gasps and whispers went through the room. Clearly. Not everyone had known. And even those who hadn't expected me to drop it like that. Emma's chest rose and fell. She stared at me. Eyes full of disappointment. Anger. And something I couldn't read hurt. Maybe. Liam. We'll talk about this privately. She practically ground the words out. Fine. I stood up. Meeting adjourned. Ms. Sutton. My office. My office was down the hall from hers, a little smaller. But with a better view. I walked in and didn't sit down. Just stood by the window. Back to the door. Emma followed and closed it behind her. What do you think you're doing? Her voice was tired and furious. That acquisition is critical for our European expansion. You know that. And back there. You humiliated Benjamin in front of everyone. How much of a kickback did you promise the middleman on that acquisition? 5%. 8. I didn't turn around. Just stared out the window and asked. The voice behind me cut off. I turned slowly. Emma stood by the door. Her face draining of color like someone had just punched her in the gut. How? How did you? Her voice shook. How I know doesn't matter. I walked around behind my desk and sat down. Every inch the interrogator. What matters is. Emma, when did you start using group money to pave the way for yourself? Or for your suitable fiancé? I didn't. She hurried to the desk. Both hands braced on the edge. Eyes glistening. That kickback is standard industry practice. And the group benefits in the end. Liam. You have to believe me. I would never hurt the company. We built it together. We. I tasted the word. And it tasted like ash. Emma. The second you walked in with Benjamin and announced that engagement, there stopped being a we. There's just you. And me. And you're Benjamin. You're still upset about that. She seized on it. Her voice rising with urgency. Fine. I admit I handled it badly. I should have told you first. But Liam. We've been together 10 years. 10 years. Does a title really mean that much? Marrying Benjamin is just the smartest choice. You'll always be the most important person to me. We can still be like we were. Like we were. I cut her off. My voice ice. Watch you come home every night to another man's bed. Watch you two go everywhere together. Accepting everyone's congratulations. While I keep being your most important partner. Working myself to the bone for you. Making you money. Propping up your empire and your perfect marriage. I stood up. Leaned across the desk toward her. Looked her dead in the eye. And spoke each word slow and sharp. Emma. What am I to you? A dog you can call and send away whenever you want. That guards your house for you. That comes wagging its tail for scraps. That's not fair. How can you say that? The tears finally came. What we have is love. It's family. It's something beyond any label. Why does marriage have to be the measure of everything? Why can't you just understand? I want a more stable, more respectable marriage. Is that wrong? Does it change what we have? Understand you. I let out a low laugh. Hollow and bitter. Emma. I understand you. I understand you too well. You always knew exactly what I wanted. That's why you could hurt me like this without a second thought. Because you were so sure no matter what you did, I'd understand. I'd support you. I'd forgive you. Just hang around like a dog. Right? No. She shook her head. Tears streaming. Liam. Don't be like this. Can we talk like we used to? Like we used to? I stepped back. Putting distance between us like she was contagious. Emma. There is no used to anymore. The Liam Carter you knew died that night at the celebration banquet. When you announced you were marrying him. The man standing in front of you now is the chairman of Westview Group. Your business partner. And the enemy who's going to tear apart you. Your suitable marriage. And everything you thought you wanted. Emma flinched. Staring at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Enemy. You said. Enemy. She whispered. All the blood draining from her face. That's right. Enemy. I confirmed it. Face blank. So save the tears. And save that our bond is bigger than label speech. From today on, it's strictly business. I stepped back to my desk and hit the intercom. Ms. Lee. Please escort Mr. Benjamin Hayes out of the building. Non-employees are not permitted in the executive wing without authorization. If he doesn't cooperate, call security. Liam. Emma cried out. I hung up and looked at her. Ms. Sutton. If there's nothing else, please return to your office. Regarding the suspended acquisition payment, I'll have risk management produce a new assessment report. Until that report is out, the funds are frozen. That's final. Emma stared daggers at me. Chest heaving. Those eyes that once held my whole world were now full of shock, rage, hurt and strangeness. Her mouth opened like she was going to say something. But in the end, nothing came out. She spun on her heel, wrenched the door open, and stormed out. It slammed shut behind her with a crash. I stood there, motionless, until her footsteps faded down the hall. A few minutes later, the intercom buzzed. Ms. Lee's careful voice came through. Mr. Carter. Mr. Hayes has left. But Ms. Sutton is very upset. She went straight to her office and hasn't come out. Also, Director Wallace from Finance and Mr. Lowe from Investments stopped by earlier. They seem to want to see you. Not seeing anyone. I cut her off. Tell everyone I'm unwell and need rest. All documents requiring my signature are on hold. Urgent matters by email only. Yes. Mr. Carter. I hung up, sat back in my chair, and opened my laptop. The cool blue glow fell across my face. Marcus's email was already waiting in my inbox. Attached were summaries of virtually every communication, financial transaction, and overlapping itinerary between Emma and Benjamin over the past 6 months. It was damning. Turns out they'd reconnected 6 months ago. Maybe even earlier. Turns out all those business trips, class reunions, and investor meetings, a lot of them had been with him. Benjamin's family business was strapped for cash, and Emma had been quietly siphoning Westview's prime assets and cash flow their way through a web of complicated maneuvers. That acquisition. Probably just another piece of the plan. All that talk about suitable, stable and respectable. Good for the group. Nothing but a calculated exchange of benefits. And a boot on 10 years of my heart. I moved the mouse and opened another encrypted folder. Inside was everything Marcus had quietly gathered over the years, all the gray areas in Emma's business dealings. Plus dirt on several key shareholders and executives. Once upon a time, all of it had been a safety net. A buffer I'd built for her. Now it was the sharpest knife in my hand. I took a deep breath and started typing. First email, to the veteran shareholders who'd never liked Emma's aggressive investment strategy, with screenshots of preliminary evidence on the project irregularities. Second directive, to my key plant in finance on the insurance list. Order him to launch a secret audit of every large transaction Emma had touched, with special focus on connected dealings with the Hayes family business. Third call, to the head of the overseas law firm we'd worked with closely for years. Personally retain them to re-examine the Starlight Technologies wager agreement. Find every possible legal loophole and exposure point. I knew this would be slow. But corporate war isn't like gang warfare. No gunshots. No blood. But just as deadly. Just as cruel. I needed patience. Let the betrayers watch everything they built rot and crumble from the inside. I wanted Emma to understand exactly what it costs to throw away a heart. I wanted Benjamin to learn some things aren't yours to take. Over the next few days, undercurrents churned beneath the surface at Westview. I stayed out of sight under the resting excuse, issuing all directives by email and through Marcus's secret channels. Emma tried to reach me several times. I turned her away every time. She protested at board meetings. But the veterans who'd received my emails were non-committal. And with my chairman's veto, her proposals kept dying on the vine. The freeze on funds started to bite. Key projects stalled. Partners complained. After its brief post-IPO spike, the stock started to wobble. Emma clearly sensed something was wrong. She started using her CEO authority to try moving money around me. But my people on the insurance line set up roadblocks every step of the way. She reached out privately to several shareholders and got nothing but vague answers back. She even tried my personal number, sending paragraph after paragraph nostalgia, accusations, anger, and finally, pleading. Liam, can we just meet and talk? Stop torturing each other like this. What do you want? Just tell me. Anything I can give you. Don't destroy what we built over 10 years. Please. I read them. Then deleted them. Blank-faced. And blocked the number. Torturing each other. When you drove a knife into my chest and smiled and asked why I was bleeding, did it ever occur to you that was torture too? A week later, Marcus sent word. The key vulnerability in the Starlight wager agreement had been found. The evidence chain was nearly complete. Meanwhile, the anonymous reports on Emma's irregular handling of the Blue Ocean project had been delivered through special channels to the SEC and landed on the desk of a notoriously uncompromising director at the Business Fraud Division. The reports deliberately avoid direct proof but point clearly enough to trigger a formal investigation. Marcus said on the encrypted line. Once that happens, Westview stock will drop hard. Emma, as the person directly responsible, will face at minimum an internal inquiry, possibly suspension. And the investigation will pull in the Hayes family business. They're already stretched thin on cash flow. They won't survive the scrutiny. Good. I watched the gray sky outside the window. Turn the heat up a little more. AK to a few major financial outlets that the Hayes family is trying to use Emma to drain Westview resources and offload their own risk. No hard proof. Just hints. Understood. Also, Mr. Carter, our people watching Benjamin report he's been meeting with Titan Capital privately. Looks like he's chasing new financing to cover his family's crisis. And Titan. They've had their eye on that east side land parcel we won for a while now. Titan Capital. Old rivals of ours. Mac, you sure Emma finds out about those meetings? I said coldly. Let it slip through someone close to her. Accidentally. Yes. I hung up. Walked to the liquor cabinet. And poured myself another drink. The plan was moving forward step by step. I should have felt satisfaction. The thrill of revenge. But there was nothing. Just that cold hollow in my chest. 10 years. 3,000 days and nights. You don't just erase that. All those days sharing cold steamed buns. Sleeping on the office floor. Holding each other through the worst of it. All that warmth that had been real. Over and over. Driving thorns into a heart already full of holes. I hated her. Hated her so bad my bones went cold. But I also. No. Not going there. The arrow was knocked. There was no turning back. A few more days. And the storm finally broke. First. A vaguely worded piece in a financial weekly hinted that a newly listed star company might be involved in internal self-dealing. With ties to another cash-strapped family business. No names were named. But anyone in the circle knew exactly who they were talking about. Westview and the Hayes family. Then SEC and Business Fraud Division personnel paid a routine visit to Westview Group. It was only preliminary questioning. But word got out fast. Panic spread through the company. The stock dropped accordingly. Emma finally lost her composure. She showed up at my apartment building. Got stopped by security. And stood downstairs screaming my name. Her voice raw and desperate. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window and watched that tiny, frantic figure below. Her hair was a mess. Her makeup was running. None of the usual polished Ms. Sutton was left, just a woman with her back against the wall. Once upon a time. She was the person I wanted to protect more than anything. Now I was the one who'd pushed her there. I watched for a long time. Until she could barely stand and Benjamin showed up and practically dragged her away. Benjamin looked up in the direction of my window. His eyes were dark and full of hate. I drew the curtains. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Emma. Liam Carter. Do you hate me that much? Hate me enough to destroy everything we built together? The Hayes family is falling apart. Benjamin's father had a heart attack and is in the hospital. Are you happy? What will it take for you to stop? I stared at the message. I could picture her hysterical face. And Benjamin's venomous glare. Happy? No. This was nowhere near enough. I texted back 2 words, call it off. Then blocked that number too. Call off the engagement to Benjamin. That was the last chance I was giving her. The only one. Though I knew she'd never take it. Her pride. Her obsession with respectability and suitability. Everything she'd already invested in, whatever feelings she might still have for Benjamin, none of it would let her back down. Sure enough. Silence. Fine by me. A few days later. The bigger bombshell dropped. First. A major financial influencer did a deep dive into the Starlight Technologies wager agreement. Laying out the hidden risks and one-sided terms. Accusing Westview's investment department of gross negligence at best. Self-dealing at worst. Westview stock tanked again. Then rumors about Emma's irregularities and suspected self-dealing on the Blue Ocean project went viral. No official proof. But more than enough for investors to head for the exits. Pressure built inside the board. Several veteran directors signed a joint demand for an emergency meeting to discuss removing Emma as CEO. And on the Hayes family side, after Titan Capital happened to leak how desperate they were for financing. Even willing to sell core technology, their already fragile supply chain completely snapped. Banks called in loans. Partners bailed. They were on the brink of collapse. Benjamin's father, from what I heard, really did have a stroke and ended up in the ICU. When you're down, everyone kicks you. I watched the fire I'd lit slowly consume everything they cared about. Until late one night. The doorbell to my apartment rang like someone was trying to break it. Benjamin was on the other side. Eyes bloodshot. Hair a mess. Suit crumpled, none of that old gentle polish remained. Just a cornered animal. Liam Carter. You maniac. You bastard. He lunged the second the door opened. But Charles and another bodyguard had him pinned before he got 2 steps. I leaned against the doorframe and watched him coldly. What do you want? Was it you? Was it all you? He roared. Veins bulging on his forehead. The reports. The media leaks. Titan to all you. Right. You want to destroy Emma. Destroy Westview. Destroy my family. You coward. If you've got a problem, come after me. Come after you. I smiled faintly. But it didn't reach my eyes. Benjamin. You've got this all wrong. I've never been targeting you. You and Emma destroyed yourselves with your own greed. Tell me any of those reports false. Did Emma cut corners on the Blue Ocean project? Did your family try to drain Westview through her? Is that wager agreement a ticking time bomb or isn't it? All I did was hold up a mirror to what you two already did. Benjamin had nothing to say to that. Just panted and glared at me with pure hatred. As for you. I took a step closer. My gaze cold as it swept over him. A trust fund kid with no real skills who uses women's feelings and resources to bail himself out. You think you're worth my time to target? You. Benjamin snapped completely and thrashed against the bodyguard's hold. But they had him locked down. Liam Carter. Don't get cocky. He spat. Emma loves me. She chose me. You can destroy everything and you still won't have her. You'll always be the loser. The pathetic guy she threw away. That line landed like a poisoned dagger straight into my deepest wound. A muscle twitched in my jaw. Then I was calm again. Loves. I repeated the word. Thick with scorn. Benjamin. Do you two really have anything you could call love? She chose you because you make her feel better about that sad little insecurity deep down. And you chose her because you saw Westview Group in her hands and the bailout money your family so desperately needed. You two really are made for each other. I waved a hand at the bodyguards. Throw him out. And he's not to come within 100 feet of this building ever again. Liam Carter. You'll get what's coming to you. You'll pay for this. Benjamin's curses echoed down the hallway. Fading away. I closed the door. Leaned back against the cold wood. And slowly slid down to the floor. A sharp, stabbing pain throbbed where my heart was. Loser. Pathetic. He was right. When it came to love, I'd lost. Completely. Utterly. But that pain was soon covered over by something colder: hatred. I wasn't going to be the pathetic one forever. I was going to be the one who ended all of this. A few days later. The emergency board meeting was held at Westview Group. I attended. It was my first public appearance since everything blew up. The tension in the room was so thick you could drink it. Every director and executive was there. Emma sat across from me. Pale. With dark circles under her eyes. But her back was straight, clinging to the last shred of her dignity. Benjamin wasn't there. He had no right to be. The meeting went straight to the point: Emma's future as CEO. And how to handle the current crisis. Several veteran shareholders led the charge. Their words sharp. Laying out her recent string of bad decisions and suspected misconduct. The massive losses and reputational damage to the group. They demanded she resign immediately and submit to an internal investigation. Emma fought back fiercely. Blaming some of it on market conditions and some on malicious rumors and internal sabotage. Her eyes flicking to me again and again. Full of anger and accusation. I said nothing the whole time. Just tapped my fingers lightly on the table. Until everyone was done speaking. I agree with Director Wallace and Director Lee. I spoke slowly. My voice quiet. But the whole room went instantly silent. Emma's head snapped toward me. Her pupils blew wide. She couldn't believe I'd said it out loud. As CEO. Ms. Sutton's recent actions have caused incalculable damage and risk to this group. Until the SEC and Business Fraud Division reach a clear conclusion. And in the interest of stabilizing the situation and restoring investor confidence. I propose that Ms. Sutton be suspended from all CEO duties. Effective immediately. VP Chandler will serve as acting CEO. The group will also form an independent investigation team to conduct a full review of all related matters. I said it all in one breath. Strictly business. Liam Carter. She shot to her feet. Voice shaking with fury. How dare you? What gives you the right? We built Westview together. Without me, there is no Westview. The right comes from being chairman and holding the majority voting shares. I lifted my eyes and looked at her calmly. As cold as if she were a stranger. The right comes from watching you destroy the Westview we built. Emma. You taught me to separate business from personal feelings. Remember. Separate business from personal. She laughed a harsh, desperate sound. Liam Carter. You're doing this because I chose Benjamin instead of you. You're getting revenge. Using these dirty tricks to get back at me. What do you get out of destroying me? Destroying Westview. I get justice. I held her furious gaze and spoke each word clearly. I get accountability to our shareholders. Our employees. And everything we built. As for you and Benjamin. I paused. Letting my eyes sweep the room. That's your personal business. It has nothing to do with this board meeting. The vote was held. With my lead and the support of the veteran directors. The motion passed by an overwhelming majority. Emma was suspended as CEO on the spot and ordered to cooperate with the investigation. All the strength went out of her. She collapsed back into her chair. Ashen. And said nothing more. After the meeting. Everyone left. Just the two of us remained. Separated by the long empty table. She lifted her head slowly and looked at me. Her eyes were bloodshot. But there were no tears, only a dead, withered hatred. You win. Liam Carter. Her voice was barely more than a rasp. I never wanted to win or lose with you. I stood and straightened my suit jacket. You're the one who turned us into a war. Why? She whispered. Like she was asking me. Or asking herself. How did we end up like this? We were supposed to. There is no we anymore. Emma. I cut her off. My voice exhausted and final. From now on. You're you. And I'm me. I'll be taking over Westview Group. As for you and Benjamin, good luck. With that. I didn't look at her again. Turned and walked for the door. Liam. She called after me. Her voice breaking. I didn't stop. You'll regret this. You'll regret it. I swear. I pulled the door open and walked out. Regret. Maybe. But regret was nothing compared to spending the rest of my life living in the shadow of betrayal. Trapped as some pathetic partner she kept around. After Emma's suspension. The investigation team moved in fast. Without her obstructing things. And with Marcus feeding them just the right leads. The Blue Ocean irregularities were confirmed quickly. The evidence was ironclad. The full risk of the Starlight Wager agreement came to light. Massive potential losses surfaced. The Hayes family got hit even harder. Besieged on all sides. They officially declared bankruptcy and liquidation. Benjamin's father never recovered, passed away in the ICU. Benjamin himself was taken in for questioning on suspected economic crimes. Word was he tried to throw Emma under the bus in a panic. But there wasn't enough evidence. When you're down, everyone kicks you. When the drum breaks, everyone hits it. The once dashing heir to the Hayes family was reduced overnight to a man with nothing. Behind bars. Emma tried to use what resources she had left to turn things around. She even tried to negotiate with me. But I refused to see her. Her shares had plummeted in value through all the scandals. Her influence on the board was gone. With Marcus's help. I quickly stabilized the group internally. The stock took its beating. But the foundation held. If anything. Cutting out the rot had given the company a new lease on life. I officially took over as acting CEO. Assuming full control of the group. Nobody mentioned Emma anymore. Her name and everything that had happened became an unspoken taboo inside Westview. 3 months later. On a rainy afternoon. I got a call from the detention center. Benjamin wanted to see me. I went. Through the thick glass. He sat in an inmate's uniform. Unshaven. Eyes hollow. In just a few months he looked 20 years older. None of that handsome. Gentle warmth was left. Just numb. Liam Carter. You won everything. I told you. I wasn't trying to win. My voice was steady. You chose your own path. Our own path. Benjamin's voice rose. Suddenly agitated. Don't act like you're clean. Liam Carter. If you hadn't pushed so hard, if you hadn't used all those dirty tricks, would we be here? Would Emma? Pushed you? I cut him off. My voice going cold. Did I make Emma announce the engagement at the celebration banquet? Did I make your family salivate over Westview's resources? Did I make Emma break the rules? Did I make either of you treat marriage like a bargaining chip? Benjamin had no answer. Just stared daggers at me. Benjamin. You still don't get it. I looked at him like he was some sad stranger. I didn't destroy you. Your greed did. Your schemes did. Your selfishness did. And the way both of you trampled on 10 years of my heart. You ended up here because of the choices you made. Both of you. I set phone down. Didn't wait to see his face twist. Turned and walked out. Outside the detention center. Cold rain hit my face. Charles came over with an umbrella. Back to the office. Mr. Carter. Somewhere else first. I had him drive to the cemetery on the west side of town. I bought a bouquet of white chrysanthemums at the foot of the hill. Then walked alone up the slippery stone steps under a black umbrella. Rain tapped monotonously against the canopy. Everything was gray. The city skyline in the distance blurred into the mist. In a quiet spot halfway up, I found my mother's headstone. In the photo, she was still young. Smiling gently, I set the flowers down, knelt, and gently wiped the raindrops off her picture with my sleeve. Hey, Mom, I said quietly, my voice dissolving into the rain. I've done a lot of things. Some of them, I don't know if they were right, but I don't regret them. I'm just tired. The rain picked up, soaking the cuffs of my pants. I knelt there a long time, just looking at her photo. By the time I came back down, the rain had lightened. At the gate, I spotted a familiar figure by accident. Emma. She stood by the roadside under a worn old umbrella, waiting for a ride. It seemed she'd lost a lot of weight. Clothes that once fit her now hung loose. Her face was an unhealthy pale. She stared blankly out at the rain. She didn't see me. The car was parked not far away. Charles looked at me, a question in his eyes. I shook my head, signaling him to wait. I stood under the eave, watching her through the drifting rain, the woman who once filled my whole world, now a stranger. The wasteland in my chest seemed to start raining harder. Cold. Silent. No warmth left at all. She never got that respectable marriage or stable future she wanted. I never got the heart and the forever I'd longed for. We'd both lost the most precious thing we had. Maybe that was the fairest ending to 10 years of tangled mess between us. After who knew how long. A taxi pulled up. Emma got in and vanished into the rain. Let's go. I turned and got in the car. Closed my eyes. And leaned back against the seat. The car pulled away from the cemetery, heading back toward the city center. Toward that towering Westview Group building reaching into the clouds. A long, lonely battle was just beginning there. But I wasn't the Liam Carter I used to be anymore. The man who'd throw everything away for love. Who'd give his whole heart to one person died the night of the IPO celebration banquet. What survived was the man who controlled Westview Group. A man forged by betrayal. With a heart harder than iron. The city streamed past the window. The windshield wipers moved back and forth in rhythm, wiping away a world that kept coming into focus and blurring again. My phone buzzed. An encrypted message from Marcus. Mr. Carter. The valuation report on the core Hayes family patents we're acquiring post-bankruptcy is in strong value. Also, the European party we've been in talks with is very interested in a partnership. They're proposing a video call next week. I picked up the phone and replied simply, schedule the meeting. Proceed with the patents as planned. I hit the lock button. The dark screen reflected my own expressionless face. The revenge was over. Life went on. Only from now on. In my world, there was only me. Hey there. Could you rate this story in the comments? Use a scale of 1 to 10. Please, I am begging you. It really means a lot to me. And if you like this kind of content, don't forget to hit follow.